bunch of different revenue sharing mechanisms on the road to create a more healthier ways to collaborate in terms of building AI and own AI.
Thank you guys. So I guess one interesting thing that we have with this speaker lineup is that most of them worked in the conventional AI and had a lot of success over there. So I think it would be interesting for audience to hear what was the motivation to basically approach the AI technology through crypto lenses. I believe that in the beginning Stability AI was also a crypto startup, and then it made a pivot to AI company, and now you're back, I guess, with Schelling AI, more like approaching it with the crypto approach, and what was kind of the motivation for you to do this?
Yeah, so Stability originally was meant to be a DAO DAOs, as we had about 500,000 people in various communities like Zero AI that we incubated. And then I was like, there's no intelligence in DAOs, we've probably got to build it first. Wait a few years. As I was kind of looking at Stability at the end of last year, we raised $100 million on incredibly favorable terms. We're going to raise another $500 million, and I was like, OpenAI is going to raise $5 billion. Can you really compete with centralized AI with more centralized AI? As a push to have SaaS solutions and this and that, and I was like, there is a future whereby every single medical decision is intermediated and checked by an AI. Every child has their own AI. Every government is run by an AI, so they're not so stupid anymore. Our average intelligence will increase. Who's going to build that? And who's going to coordinate that? That's why I was like, let's create Schelling as a focal point to build that, and then think about the money of the future, Bitcoin style, to provision the compute. Because it only needs one entity to build really high quality models for those specific things. Again, they can be used more generally, and I think the decentralized approach is the right one when it comes to governance, when it comes to access, and then also, like I'm on the board of Render, this whole DEI space where you have distributed compute, it's not great from an SLA perspective and institutional stuff, but it is really good now as we move to more agentic and O1 type models that run on inference time and get better as you infer longer. So it's more linear and you can distribute the additional training aspect of that. And we saw that coming, I was like, this is super exciting. And I think that again, this is an area where we can have a massive edge.
So would it be correct to summarize it that the Schelling AI wants to put governance into the hands of people in terms of what's right and what's wrong about each country's morals and ethics, in terms of giving this power back to the local players? Or
part of our plan is to launch a national champion for every country, give them supercomputers and allow them to build their own data sets and models. And we'll build a generalist education, healthcare, finance, and government models that they can then deploy. Because the average intelligence in the healthcare sector of every nation is tiny now, it'll go massive. Every individual will go massive, and you use that intelligence to secure the world's best currency, basically. That can fund everything.
Good, thanks, Emad. Alex, it seems you're also going back and forth between AI and crypto, and now with Near, you guys are having new beginnings, so can you share a little bit more on the motivation?
As a side note, when I listen to Emad, it's very inspiring, and I guess it's a tough act to follow, and I guess the structure is that it's always going to be me. I think it's my journey is less inspiring between jumping between crypto and AI. We started as an AI company in 2017. We wanted to build AI developer. If you guys remember 2017, AI was going like this, and then with the end of 2017 it went like this, right? But so when we started Near as an AI company, we sort of were projecting the trajectory to continue going upward. It did not, and one thing that happened back then in 2017 was that we had to pay people a lot for data annotations using PayPal. That was very painful, and that's how we started looking into blockchain. And both Ilya and I, we have a lot of systems background. I was building databases, Ilya was building TensorFlow. So we looked at what existed back then, we were like, well, it seems like blockchain is a solvable problem, so let's dive into crypto. The reason why we're looking into AI again is, as I mentioned, our mission right now is to make sure that open source AI will continue being competitive. And a big problem, the big part of that is making sure that open source AI captures value from the usage, because otherwise, like once models start costing billions of dollars to train, it is impossible for without capturing value from those models being used. There's no way of ensuring that there's a continuous creation of those models. And Near is in a relatively good spot to do that, because first of all, Near has resources today, and Near has a capability of attracting them, so you can bootstrap the effort. Again, because Ilya and I were coming from AI space, we know what has to be done, and it is somewhat simpler for us than for some other crypto projects to attract talent. Especially in case of Ilya, relative to Ilya, I'm mature. Many AI people want to work with the person who created transformers, so it makes it easier to attract researchers, to attract resources. So it's given that we positioned so well to execute on that mission, it made a lot of sense to.
I think that's maybe a bit too modest. You're one of the first employees of OpenAI, and then you return there as well.
Yeah, it's still it's not the same as creating the salmon paper. Yeah, it's
Yeah, well, certainly for me and our founding team, we very much felt that that as AI was taking off, we believed that it was going to be absolutely transformational. And I've just seen in my time, especially at Google, that even a lot of well-intentioned people working in a big monopoly wasn't going to end well, right? You were still going to end up with the dynamics of limiting access, narrow focus, the corporate social responsibility approach to the big questions of minimizing risk, a lot of PR, but ultimately focusing on market domination and profits. And I didn't think that was going to end well. So I was really focused on how can we start something that can change that dynamic and end in a better future. So in a lot of ways, very similar set of concerns and vision, where we've landed as the leverage point. And I think, what's interesting is when we think about all of us on stage, it's actually very complementary that we're working on different layers, but coming together, it's more powerful. And that is one of the strengths of Web3, is that ability to have a composable stack of multiple projects working together, unlike the bloodbath of Web2 companies trying to kill each other, top to bottom, be the winner of everything. What I think is incredibly important, why we're so focused on agents, is we believe that that's the point of value creation, is essentially the system you build. As long as I've been working in AI, I've found researchers focus on the model, but where the real value creation, the real impact is the system. And the systems that we're going to build are these agents that are more and more autonomous and are used to drive the way AI adds value in our lives. I think the current state, obviously I want to see efforts to create open source models win. It's a tall challenge, and I don't think we can wait for that to attack the risk of what OpenAI, especially as a company that has mindshare, can do if they build a walled garden, a closed ecosystem with proprietary lock-in. The good news is we've got multiple companies, even if they're well capitalized, that are building very competitive models. But how do we make sure that we keep that choice and that we get to control the agents and it doesn't become censored and limited? And increasingly, we've got to build on OpenAI, you've got to build on Apple, you've got to build on Google. Those are the only ways we can have agents. Because before maybe Microsoft and us too, right? We're in a lot of trouble if we don't preserve choice around the way AI actually lands in society. To me, that's an incredibly important aspect of Web3 ethos and capabilities.
Yeah, I'm coming more from crypto for AI perspective, right? So, for this problem space, you have to really talk to and interview with the users. Where we're talking about actually multiple group of users, right? There's this big group of users who are building AI models, model developers, and I think they are struggling with a couple of things today, right, in the Web2 space. Number one is they really are lacking resource and capital to quickly prototype ideas, right? So building a model today is so expensive in terms of the money you need to raise upfront to spend on data sets and GPU compute. So for many of the individuals here, if you have brilliant ideas, it's not enough for you to really start and create things that you prove yourself really easily. I think that the way to make this sort of a product shift is to allow all these participants in the life cycles of creating AI to be the shareholder of the model that's to be created, right? data contributors, including any individuals giving out personal data, as well as the compute providers, as well as the model developers who have the AI know-how. These are key stakeholders in creating an AI model. And if there's a mechanism for them, relatively speaking, permissionless and trustless to give out the different shares of the model in exchange of the corresponding resource, that's a much simpler and accelerated way of creating an AI model and solving the pain points of today's model developer. And this is exactly what a blockchain can be leveraged to produce a provenance infrastructure to enable such revenue sharing mechanisms to happen. That's number one. And number two is to further think about creating useful AI access and we further tokenize this AI access to be able to ship them into a secondary market to be invested by the capital from a DeFi community or ecosystem. That's even better because you now suddenly start having much more hot money rather than just the VC money, which is relatively speaking much harder and scales and size-wise much more constrained to be given out to this model developer. Then there's both bootstrapping capital fund as well as new revenue sharing mechanisms to build AI model. It's going to quickly accelerate the whole progress of advancing the AI capability. And I think that's a great way to think about where blockchain and crypto DeFi can help for today's AI model development.
Alex, not to put you in an uncomfortable position now, to first answer the next question. I guess in the foundation you guys tried to promote this concept of user-owned and sovereign AI. So can you elaborate a little bit more how do you guys define the sovereign AI and what concrete steps Mir plans to take in order to achieve this vision?
Yeah, I think one big part of user-owned AI is that all the data is in control of the user, right? So that's something that would be completely impossible if AI continues to be in the hands of large corporations. That would today that is actually something that is possible. Right? You can run Llama locally, but it is not necessarily going to continue being the case, right? As technology evolves. So for many use cases, we can anticipate already them happening. As the models get a little better, but it's just not there yet, just a little bit. So once GPT-4, GPT-5 maybe, or Claude cross the boundary, if open source doesn't catch up, then we're getting into the same situation where the new technology is fully controlled by the whole governments. And as they collect data, they get better and better. It's harder and harder for open source to catch up. So the sovereignty over the data for the effectively tier 1 AI is the biggest. That would be almost the definition of what user-owned AI is.
And Emad thinks that sovereignty of the AI is also something that aligns well with the vision of Schelling. Anything that you want to follow up on?
Yeah, I mean, who do you want to build the AI that will teach your kids? And is with them every single day and they'll trust more than anything. This is a question of self-sovereignty. So crypto, Web3, we've all been with self-sovereign individual. He's not your crypto. These incredibly convincing AIs, if we don't have governance and sovereignty over them, it's like not your model is not your mind, right? They're intermediate, they can be used as the ultimate system of social control. If you don't set in defaults right now, then it's going to be very, very bad. And I think again, the work that Momir and kind of others are doing, they want control of your data, they want control of your models, and there must exist this open distributed path. Similarly, if you look at the world, the average IQ globally is like 90 because of bad infrastructure. You're going to get into this position whereby a few people control very biased AIs that allow them to have superhuman capabilities, and everyone else is left behind. A practical example of this is take, for example, the Philippines right now. AI is now better than any call center worker. How big an industry is that in the Philippines? And so it's been completely displaced. So we have to really make sure this technology is widely available, widely governed, and we can have control over this technology for ourselves, both to accelerate and allow us to achieve our potential, but to protect us as well. Because this wave is coming in of entities that will just try and keep and control this in the name of safety, democracy, or whatever.
And essentially the way of replacing a lot of the knowledge we're studying from simple to more sophisticated is hard to stop regardless of whether we talk about sovereign or like centralized AI. But for instance, this example of Philippines, like how can it be built in order to protect also the local population from this major technological shift?
I don't think you can stop it because it's happening everywhere all at once, and not as well through 8 gigabytes file that can run on anything. Instead, this is a question of decentralization by access. Again, we want it so the Filipinos can build their own models, and the entrepreneurs in the Philippines can build new industries for the benefit of the Philippines and beyond. It can level the playing field if you upskill the intelligence of the entire world, because this is the gap that happens in intelligence. Like one of the charities we support, my co-founder at Stability runs it, Imagine Worldwide, is distributing 3.8 million tablets to every child in Malawi. If you put GPT-4 level intelligence on that, what happens? It'll transform the education there. So we need to think about brand new systems, and I think again, crypto can coordinate these systems. We can embed standards of self-sovereign identity as well as self-sovereign AI within them. And this is a challenge that everyone here on this panel and beyond is going to have to work together on. Because you've got a little window of opportunity here, where you can set really great standards and now compete with centralized alternatives.
Thanks a lot. Ron, how is Theriq thinking about some of these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important that you have preserve choice and freedom. Like right now, we're in the early phases, and I think, like in any early phase, you have a lot of choice, a lot of options. Right, the people who are building, the centralized players are trying to woo everyone to build in their environment. But we've seen this movie before, right? That if left to their own devices, they will start to lock people in and become extractive and limit access, leverage the data, so for us, it's incredibly important that instead we set standards which give real choice and empower everyone to build great AIs, right? So very much, as Emad was saying, make it so that the individual in the Philippines who has a brilliant idea can start to create an agent that captures that idea, that can share with others, that collectives can form to make it so you can have this revolution in productivity. And at the same time, I think you also have to think about how do you ensure good quality and reputation, right? How do you allow for discovery, right? That I think we're going to be inundated with a large number of agents, and so we want to make sure that people can find good agents, and even more, like, it's great to talk about sovereignty, but there's also responsibility in the governance, right? So how do you have a way of ensuring that you test for malicious behavior and improper behavior, so also governing and setting standards to make sure that agents that are available and collaborate conform with those standards in the community, right? So I think we as an industry and Web3 AI need to come together around community governance as a better alternative to centralized governance, but we still have to address the challenges of bad actors and bad incentives.
I'm going to say one thing. 76% of Web3 developers are outside of the West. And they're all going to become Web3 and AI developers thanks to
Yeah, I think if we talk about sovereignty, I would rather just generalize what we call user ownership and sovereignty, right? So, because I'm seeing the problem right now is the fact that users of AI are actually really lagging in terms of their concerns and worries about privacy. I mean, today, many of you sitting here are using ChatGPT in a way that you basically talks about a lot of personal stuff, and you even upload your personal file in order to have a better experience using an exchange of free ChatGPT credits, basically. And that basically says, like, we are not ready yet to embrace a business model that built on top of privacy protection, right? Because you probably wouldn't think about how much you're willing to pay for a more secure and privacy protected solution. And I think maybe the burning problem these days in terms of the whole AI ecosystem is the sovereignty about building AI, right? Like, there's so many resource stakeholders in the whole process of building AI. There's all the developers who have the know-how, there's compute and data providers. But what we're seeing so far is the application builders who takes the AI capability, which is serving as endpoints and is sending out inferences results as endpoints. These application builders who are using the endpoints are the final people who are monetizing the application and takes all of the revenue. And there's basically a boundary here, like where does the revenue comes from the application builder to all of the upstream contributors of the AI capability. And I think the sovereignty question here is a much more burning problem in order to make the whole AI development more substantial and more open and more transparent, because if you think about, as time goes, model developers doesn't get income. Data providers have very little income. Compute providers have to compete, have to to that in terms of like trying to lower their margin. Then it's not a sustainable ecosystem. It's gonna all be owned by the centralized providers like OpenAI, Google, Meta. And then the outcome at the very end will be these big players dominate the whole life cycle of AI, from GPU to data, to the user feedback, to the application ecosystem, to all of the endpoints that are much better than the rest of the open source community. Then we, as the users of AI, will have very little say about where our data can look like, going to be used, and how much we're going to pay for this AI capability, because it's pretty much dominated by the centralized provider. So I think it's a lot of education we need to be doing by all of us here over the next few years in terms of thinking about what it means to give out the user controls over to sort of break down the whole AI ecosystem and let more players to compete in a fair way rather than just trying to take all of the revenue to the very end of the application builder.
I guess the next topic we can touch on is AI agents. I believe that this is the topic that is adjacent to all these projects on the stage. Maybe we can start with Ron over here. Like, Schelling AI recently also shared a post about the vision in the future where we have like billions of AI agents specialized for different trades. I guess like you guys at Theriq are also quite bullish about the trend of agent development and specialized AI agents disrupting a lot of the digital economy and the way we interact with the web. But I guess maybe the question would be why the decentralized approach and crypto primitives combination of that with AI technology has better chances or leads to a better future than, let's say, if Google works with Apple Pay and OpenAI to basically build a whole suite of AI agents together.
Yeah, I mean, we passionately believe that there is going to be so much more value in specialized agents working together, that so many people have unique insights, and that we will be able to democratize creating agents so that anyone with good ideas can make an agent work well for them, and can share it and monetize it, and they can collaborate. So that kind of bottoms-up innovation, I think, will be much more powerful than the ponderous, slow-moving way that the big tech giants are approaching this, of trying to build sort of universal agents. Like we hear things like universal replacement worker. Not only is it ominous, but it doesn't sound like it's going to land anytime soon. And so instead, we believe that token incentives on chain will really drive this flywheel of incentivizing usage and feedback by the community, incentivizing creation, making great tools that can really leverage all of the data and the insights and the emerging models that the community has to offer. So we believe that those are important reasons why the Web3 ecosystem and Theriq can win here and be the most vibrant ecosystem for AI agents. I think we also believe that it's incredibly important that just to make agents work together dynamically, you really need to have composability, right? And rather than the Web 2 approach is every time two pieces of software need to work together, they need to go off and establish an offline relationship and share a secret, which is a terrible way of integrating things, right? Public key cryptography offers a much better way of integrating and composing agents. Similarly, agents need to own things, they need to pay for things, and blockchain rails are just far superior for those requirements, right? Agents are currently unbanked in Web 2, and making them able to actually do useful things is going to be quite challenging, whereas it's just natural So these are just some of the reasons why we're so bullish on the ability of Web3 agents to outcompete Web2 and really become, our view is that agent reputation is going to be the killer app for blockchain.
Emad, you wrote about this vision of billions of AI agents, and just interesting to hear your thoughts about how we go from today to the future where we have billions of them, and how this transition would occur.
Yeah, so these AI models right now are like savants with goldfish memory. So we were in for its time, but now they're getting memory, the ability to work longer for better outcomes. That's OpenAI's own model, one model. And then soon the ability to interact. And again, they'll probably pay each other in crypto and go beyond. I think the really interesting thing here is that you want to build specialized agents for various things, and you have a mixture of agent type architectures. A lot of the agents that are built centralized will be within the walled gardens, whereas crypto potentially provides the rails for them to interact with various teams building various specialized things, because you don't always need to have the same set of knowledge, the same set of capabilities. And so I think that we'll see all of this infrastructure being built over the next period, and then standards for interaction. I think that's the big unlock, because like I said, right now we're still at the stage of goldfish memory, no real state. But with that coordination and the verification, the states of blockchain, there's really interesting things as you get great builders building that infrastructure.
Anything to add?
Yeah, I think when you mentioned this concept of OpenAI integrating with Apple Pay or Google Pay, it's a nice thing to visualize, right? Because if you use like Apple Pay every day next to your home, right, it might look like something that works flawlessly, right? But then you go to another country, like I flew to Madrid, right? I'm trying to pay for a ticket to Real Madrid using Apple Pay, and it says payment cannot be processed. Why cannot be processed? God only knows, right? And I can only imagine what will happen if OpenAI tries to integrate Apple Pay. Like Apple Pay is an extremely complex system, right? It will go wrong. Payments will be failing, agents will be failing. It's going to be a relatively disastrous situation. While with crypto, if an agent has the key, an agent can make a transaction. Right? There's absolutely nothing that can prevent an agent from making a transaction. And I think generally crypto has been better at many things related to payments. And the big reason why crypto didn't penetrate deeper into our lives is that the credit cards are so omnipresent. Right? Like if you go to any coffee shop, you go to any bookstore, you can always pay with a credit card. So because it's already like there's a chicken and egg problem here. But agents, agents is the new technology. It hasn't been yet polluted with existing old school payments. And I think because crypto is so much more natural for agents, there's a very good chance that as agents evolve, it's going to be crypto, not like Apple Pay or any other technology that will be omnipresent there. And it's so much easier, for the user, it's so much easier to add the key than like to go through the complex authorization process. And for the agent developer, it's so much easier to just build on top of the blockchain. That I think this is actually potentially the point where crypto payments will start getting deeper and deeper into the lives of people. So that's exciting.
Just quickly add, I mean, when we talk about agents versus model, my understanding is that when we look at the last generations of AI models, they usually have to be integrated with some applications, right? And then the user should come in to use the application, and then that's where the revenue got generated in this whole process. But if you look at today, when we talk about agent, they mostly mean like autonomous agents, right? Which can take instructions, go out, explore the web environment, and even like real-world physical environments, and then take actions and then generate outcomes. And one of the outcomes here is actually you could start producing revenues in an autonomous way. One great example that we're actually involved in is like we're building autonomous agents for creators, KOLs, influencers who need to engage with their audience, right? In the case of creator, they engage with their fans in terms of creating revenue. In the case of the KOL, they create contents and post them on social channels and create revenue, right? In this case, the agent automatically start generating revenue without even building a full version of its model, much more grounded to the specific environment it was deployed. And in that process, would you be willing to give out all of this private information and user information in exchange for better experiences? At this stage, people seem to be fine of giving out this information to some extent for free, so to get better experiences. But my question is still the same. With the education we're going to have down the road, when these agents are good enough to replace your jobs, cutting off your job opportunity and monetization opportunity, you might not think the same. And so we need to really see the lag in here. And the lag could be 1 year, could be 6 months, depending on different type of jobs we're working on. But when it comes, it will be too late to think about the solutions.
As we are entering the later stage of this panel, I also wanted to reflect on some of the recent developments. We mentioned it earlier today, the O1 model. I guess the question is whether you guys think this is an important shift in how we approach the models in terms of putting a lot more emphasis in what happens post-training and having inference taking significantly larger amount of compute relative to what it used to be before this sort of emphasis on the reasoning and chain of thought, and whether you see any sort of other second-order effects that would come after this shift, maybe starting from Emad.
Yeah, I think most of the data in big models is rubbish, and you use large compute just like superbidding a stake for longer to make up for that. Now we're getting better and better data in the models, and they're getting to a point where they can be run on the edge or on these kind of devices. Inference will become more and more important, but then continuous learning with private data will be more important than that. Yeah, this is where open source models shine, and we can start moving intelligence more and more to the edge. That's actually useful.
And it's not only inference time. Like O1 spends more time during inference, but also the way it's trained is like when you just do pre-training, you just feeding data. It needs to be training very, very fast in a very centralized fashion. So that's where you absolutely must be training on a very large cluster that is collocated. But the way O1 is trained through the reinforcement learning, it spends more time doing inference at the training time. So that, if those models become more dominant in the future, that makes it more accessible for them to be trained in more distributed clusters. So that potentially would be good news for the effort of making those models open source and trained on the wider clusters of resources pulled together from a lot of different places.
I think there's two really important innovations in O1. One is, it's not a new idea that you want to be able to scale the amount of runtime compute to improve the quality of AI output. There's been lots of papers, lots of techniques of having things like constitutionally, I have one AI model review another's, critique it, until, and it's not replicated, but OpenAI is claiming that they've achieved a system where they keep getting better performance with exponential increases in runtime compute. Right, so that's a breakthrough if it's true, and it's certainly, I don't doubt that it's true. It's impressive initial results, but the point that now we've really sort of cracked the code and started to see the ability to use more and more compute to improve the quality at runtime, that's a big deal, right? It's also a big deal because it's being applied at what has been a really critical problem for making AI systems, agents work well, is reasoning and planning. Right? And so by being able to have models that are better at thinking through and reasoning, it's going to significantly improve the complexity and the autonomy of agents, right? The kind of useful applications we can build. And behind the scenes, the reason why this RL technique for training it is so interesting is there's just not a lot of good data out there of how to actually think through a problem, right? There's very little of that. What tends to be out there is just the answer. So having, so maybe it's not an accident that the domains that O1 is good at are domains like math and programming where it's fairly easy to verify correctness of the answer, so you can kind of quickly say that it teaches itself accurately. But I think it represents the starting gun of progress in all of these areas.
Yeah, I think for me the part of the technologies that I really want to maturize is basically private computing. Basically like fluid homomorphic encryption, for example, which is really flourishing. We don't have it today, but I think we do have some good alternative with small assumptions have to be made. For example, the trusted execution environment (TEE) of the chips, CPU, GPU from Intel and Nvidia. They have this already. They can generate proof. They can do verification. The question is like whether you trust these providers of these TEEs, which I think we should make certain assumptions to really start building some solutions of private computing, and then with that we can start implementing the idea of basically creating some contract mechanisms for all of the computation to be done, starting from the very upstream of the life cycle, the data part, fine-tuning part, to the user eventually iterations of all of it.
And I guess one last question. I would like to talk about if schemes, about what sort of like scenarios we could imagine on the AI utopia side of things, or AI chaos, and what sort of decisions over the next few years will decide whether we end up in the AI chaos or in a lot of prosperity driven by this new form of intelligence. Emad, do you want to?
Well, I think the dystopia apart from bad firmware upgrading with the robots killing us all is panopticon, where the governments and other entities have complete control and see every part of our lives living in free crime, right? The utopia in Star Trek versus Star Wars future is that we finally use AI to help us coordinate our resources and eliminate hunger, poverty, uplift the intelligence of our institutions, and just get rid of frustration. And what does a post-labor economy look like? One where we can all just have a good time and achieve our potential. I think that it's very difficult to see which direction things go, but again, open is probably going to be more resilient, more coordinated, and I think that DRT has a very important part to play there.
One utopian scenario I like to think about a lot is as AI starts replacing, on a short-term scale, as it automates more and more of the mundane work, people will have more and more ways to express themselves creatively at work. They will have more capacity. Like when you come home from your work, if you spend all day doing routine work, you're tired. Your creative juices will not flow. But now maybe if your work is more creative during the day, after work you have more time to do to express yourself and have fun. So I just hope that people will have more. Often today when you talk to a person who works 8 to 6, they often you will often hear this story that like they don't even remember the past 10 years because they just flew by because it was always work. Like work kids, and I just hope that people will have more time to live and to have fun, to be creative.
Well, I think in addition to the dystopian scenarios Emad mentioned, there's also risks of things like bad actors using AI to do destabilizing, potentially cataclysmic things like unleashing unprecedented pandemics with AI tools. There's also risk of long-term, even if we sort of have a peaceful system and the AIs don't sort of directly rise up and do awful things, just increasingly AIs out-competing humanity and humans sort of fading away, which might not be a dystopia if the AIs are a worthy successor and are have rich values and are conscious and sort of become, it might even be that humanity merges in with that new species. But it's also possible to imagine that as a zombie species that has no real value, that is just mindless automata. We don't know enough about consciousness to sort of evaluate that, but those are dystopian scenarios in my mind too. I think, in terms of utopia, I think, Alex certainly and Emad brought up good points. There's, I think the opportunity for us to also address health and longevity, are interesting, right? And hopefully we can stimulate ourselves to be better and better people and more engaged, because a very plausible scenario, if things sort of are in our control, which I don't know whether I think it's dystopian, but maybe others would feel differently, is we basically create the pleasure machine, and most people tune into an AI-generated world that is they're maximally enjoying doing nothing, And you know, that might feel like utopia to some. To me, it seems pretty dystopian. It's not far from Brave New World.
I think I mean to what I can imagine, right? Let's say AI has two major use cases. One is reducing the time you spend on work, increasing productivity. Second is curing the time, basically make you entertain, right? We see basically these two sides of the application start monetizing very well. To the extreme that one day there's only like 5% of people, 1% of people in the world need to be actually thinking independently, and then the rest of them are either this agents comes doing the work, or
Why isn't it zero?
yeah, could be. I mean, but I think that 1% would be basically governments if they have done regulations and compliance quickly than us. So, and then to the extreme, the question is not about whether you're enjoying it, because you probably will be enjoying all the entertainments that AI can bring to you, which is probably hundreds X of what you're doing right now. But the question is like, do you have the sovereignty of do you have the self-awareness and independence of what you can do, what you cannot do in real life? This is pretty much close to the movie Matrix, right? And I think there's a lot to think about from there. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thanks for the time. We ran out of it, so I hope you enjoyed listening, and that will be it for today. Thank you.
Thank you for all of our guests speaking. So now we have come to the end of our event. So we really appreciate everyone's presence today. So we are welcome everyone to come to the stage so we can take a picture together.
Hello guys, come up and please take a picture with us, and also that's the remark the end of the day of our event. And thank you guys so much. Momir. Thank you so much for breaking the glass. It's not my drop, it's like glass drop. Thank you so much for joining us, and also it's our honor and our pleasure to meet you all. And also, you know, as OFR13th, the tradition is that we take a picture together. So I will wait for people to